Well, thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much too. I must say, I started life as a teacher, and I've always had this horror of standing in front of a group of people and trying to keep control and it all being chaos. So thank you very much indeed for being obedient and sitting down. It's a great pleasure to be here tonight. My name is Chris Barton. I'm His Majesty's Trade Commissioner for Europe, and that means it's my job to encourage a thriving UK-Europe trade and investment relationship, and it is a privilege and pleasure to do that. Now, I'm going to be a little bit more cheerful than maybe some of the discussion that we've had today, partly because it is my job to be cheerful, partly because I actually genuinely believe that there are many reasons for us to be very positive about the long-term trajectory of our trade and investment relationship. So let me share just 4 things that I think we should be cheerful about in terms of the UK's trade relationship with Europe, UK's trade relationship with Greece in particular. The first thing is to underline how deeply the UK believes in the importance and the power of trade and investments with Europe, with Greece, and overall internationally. Why are we so in favour of it? Partly for standard reasons, for being pro-trade. Absolutely believe that it drives economic growth and it creates jobs and it improves living standards. That's true at any time, but I'd say the particular times why I think that is important now. It is important now as we face collectively a range of the economic and political headwinds to which we referred to earlier. It's important now as we want to make the transitions to our economies to a more sustainable future. And we believe very strongly that if we're going to do that, we need to do it together. It will require significant trade, significant investment, significant sharing of expertise between us if we're going to make those fundamental transformations of our economies. And I also think it is vital for what in the UK we have called our levelling up agenda, and again it was referred to earlier on today, making sure that the benefits of growth, of jobs, of economic prosperity are shared across our nation as a whole. And that is absolutely fundamental, both as an end in itself and also as a means of ensuring support for what we're doing. So absolutely trade and investment is something to be celebrated, and it's something to be celebrated here in terms of UK and Europe. Of course, we've been on a journey, as they say, in terms of our relationship, the UK and the EU, and I'll say something about that in a second. But I think it's worth just underlining at the moment, particularly given what's been happening to the east and north in Ukraine, just how important it is that countries such as the UK and Greece, who share such a rich history, such a shared sense of values and of culture and what is right and what is wrong, that we use the opportunities to strengthen our trade relationships as we share all the different ways in which we want to stand up for the sort of societies that we believe in. So yes, there's an economic reason, but there's a more wider, a more fundamental reason why trade and investment is so important, and why UK deeply values its trade relationship with Greece, deeply values it with the EU, and deeply values it internationally. And just to put a number on it, so trade, UK-Europe trade, UK-Greek trade last year, £11 billion. That is a hugely significant amount. And for UK trade with Europe, it remains by far and away the most important trading region for the UK. And I will confidently predict it will remain by far and away the most important trading relationship for the UK till we're all well in our retirement. So that's the first thing to celebrate, is how deeply the UK values our trade and wider relationship with Greece, with the EU, and more generally. Second reason to be cheerful is in terms of the recovery, that we are making good progress on recovery. Of course, the last 3 years or so have been extremely tough. They've been extremely tough from COVID. They've been extremely tough for the Brexit transition. They've been extremely tough for the Russia-Ukraine and the implications that has had more generally. And that has reflected in our trade stats, and we saw a significant reduction in UK exports to Europe as we left the single market and the customs union. But that recovered very quickly from those initial drops, and recently we have seen, at least in money terms, The trade that the UK has with Europe is at the highest level it has ever been, higher than it was pre-Brexit, pre-COVID, and pre-Russia-Ukraine. Of course, some of that is to do with prices, but even in real terms, we're pretty much back up to the sort of levels we were back in 2019. And equally important, I'd say, sort of politically in the context that we have, of course, as we went through Brexit, it led to some uncertainties. It led to some frictions that weren't there before. It had an impact in terms of goods and services and the free movement of people. Those are given. But we now have the certainty in terms of the relationship with the Trade and Cooperation Agreement and then the Windsor Framework resolving the last key outstanding issue in our relationship. That is there. We have the certainty. We have seen that businesses are adjusting to the new arrangements as reflected in those trade stats that I've said. And then when you look at the major issues that are around facing us collectively in the international sphere at the moment, you see UK and Greece, you see UK and the EU working together in response to Russia-Ukraine, in response to the climate change crisis, and in COP. You see it in the World Trade Organization, you see it in the G7, you see it in the G20. In issue after issue, actually, there is a lot of constructive, close relationship because those fundamentals are absolutely still there in terms of the way that we look at the world. And again, if you like stats, I know you can do stats, lies, as they say, stats, and lies, damn lies, and statistics. But we have actually seen significant growth even in the last year. UK-Greek trade increased by 90% last year compared to the year before, showing that the recovery is really strong. And yes, we've been through a very difficult stage, but we are coming out the other side. And both economically and politically and commercially, we are seeing a strong recovery from what have been some really challenging years. So that's the second reason to be cheerful. Third reason to be cheerful is to look at the long-term future. What is a realistic prognosis for what is going to happen to UK, Greek, UK and UK-EU trade over the coming years? Well, I think that we have every reason to be positive about the long-term future. Why do I say that? Well, we have the baseline, as I've already said, in the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. Of course, it's not the single market, it's not the customs union, it doesn't try to be, but it is a world-class free trade agreement. It is at least as good as the trade deals that the UK has with any other region in the world, at least as good as the trade deals that the EU has with any other region outside the single market and customs union. So we have the fundamental basis for a really strong trade relationship. We have brilliant UK businesses, brilliant Greek businesses, and you see that on both sides and represented around this room. You see enormous potential in terms of different sectors of our economies for growth. And I just highlight sort of three briefly in particular. That low-carbon transition I've referred to. Of course, there's an imperative for us to make the low-carbon transition. It opens up enormous investment opportunities, and we're seeing that in major UK companies investing and operating in Greece, major Greek companies investing, operating in the UK to deliver that low-carbon transition. Not only is that good for the environment, it is absolutely good for our economies and strengthening our trade relationship. So that's one area where we can be very positive about the future. I think also on the technology area, the UK is proud to be one of 3 countries in the world that has a technology sector worth over $1 trillion, alongside US and China. So we're a world-leading country in terms of our technology and that development of it. And Greece, again, we are seeing huge numbers of companies, of Greek companies, I'll be meeting a wide range of them tomorrow, investing in the UK, taking up the huge opportunities there, and you've got UK companies investing, trading in here. So technology, another area where we're going to see major growth, and of course that spreads throughout the economy. And third area, which I think is worth highlighting, is an area where there is a particular reason for opportunity in our trade and investment relationship, is in the maritime sector. Of course, Greece is well known for being a world leader in the maritime sector. UK also has a very powerful maritime area. We estimate it contributes 55 billion to our economy. Overall exports about 15 billion. Even just in ships themselves, about 4 billion exports from the UK. And that is an area where we can contribute a huge amount in a complementary way, with the UK providing a lot of the services around brokering, around insurance, around the legal firms, the financial support, and so forth. So another area where there is huge opportunity to grow. So we'll have huge support for the trade and investment on both the UK and the Greek side. That's true for us together. It's true in the European Union context too. So that's number one. Number two, the recovery is going strongly. We are, in money terms, I say, higher than we've ever been in our trade. In real terms, almost back to levels we were in 2019. And the opportunities for long-term growth are huge. So I think those are three really powerful reasons to be positive as we look at the future. Of course, it's going to be tricky in some ways. The issues remain. We're very well aware of the overall economic context, and the global context we talked about is difficult. But there's masses we can do together. And then let me just end with that point, which is why from the UK government side, and I'd say a fourth reason to be cheerful, is that have a government, and I think I'd say this is true across all the mainstream political spectrums in the UK. You have governments who very strongly support trade, who will work actively to encourage it, to encourage investment into the UK, to help Greek companies invest in the UK, take the advantages there, to help UK companies invest in and export to Greece. I know that the Greek government is doing the same. And together, if you have that partnership of people wanting to seize those huge advantages, you've got business with the know-how and the drive and the finance to do it, and governments that are supportive, I think that gives us every reason to see our relationship go from strength to strength. So those are four reasons to leave you to be cheerful as you eat your main course. But just before you do, I think I'm going to be asked a couple of questions about it. Thank you very much indeed.